We're going to jump right back into parts and POs. So a lunch topic that I thought was very interesting today was this thing called system thinking, okay?
Some brilliant person came up with that.
Some brilliant person said
Brilliant
that.
person.
Not me.
Shannon, would you actually come up here in front of the camera for just a second and just kind of like briefly describe it? System thinking.
My advisor would think it was shameful how much I don't remember, actually. But basically, I think as Brandon was saying, I graduated in natural resources. And so when you're dealing with systems, I graduated in ecology, you can't look at just one aspect because everything affects everything else. So you have to look at it as a system. And all the inputs affect what happens to the outputs. So if you plant a new species, that potentially could affect what wildlife is there and what species are able to continue to grow, and that can change the soil composition eventually. And so things affect other things just by virtue of coming into the system. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. You could keep it smaller, but the idea of systems thinking is understanding the bigger picture and seeing the parts and working within the system also, and recognizing this system is dynamic and it's going to change and it's going to do different things, and different inputs will have different outputs in different systems, and it's all, even what you have there to begin with. So maybe even for your example, what you put in as data to begin with is going to largely affect the potential outcomes of your system. And so it's just a different way of thinking, and just understanding the different aspects that are involved. I'm doing a shameful job at this.
So how would you compare that then, if I'm trying to get my I'm a linear thinker, so how would I think compared to that?
Obviously linear thinking is really beneficial for sometimes because it helps you come to conclusions quickly. It helps you have an idea of what your intended outcome might be, but in a system, it doesn't always work that way. So I mean, linear is nice when you're maybe doing accounting or when you're maybe doing certain things that you want to get to a conclusion quickly, or that you just find it helpful. And I am not actually entirely sure what the best way to transition from that is. Definitely, I think thinking of things more globally or having that bigger picture mentality, this may not even relate, but I'll talk about an example that my mother and I use, and maybe this will help you. Because I feel like you use systems thinking in a lot of different areas of your life. You just don't even think about it. You may think, I'm a linear thinker, but you're not. Yeah. Because you already do that in other systems that you're comfortable with, when you're comfortable with the system. So my mother, for instance, she is a seamstress, and she has become familiar with all the terminology and those things, and she's just spent time there. So when she comes to help me with the project, I get to a point that I don't know what to do, and it frustrates me, and I just say, what am I doing? What am I supposed to do? I don't even get what happens. And she's like, oh, well, you can do it this way, and you can do it this way, and you can go here, you can go here. You can do any of these things. And to me, it's like, no, I just want you to tell me one way. Like, I just want to know how to get the task done. Yeah. What's the best way? And she's like, well, it depends on what you want, you know. But here's the thing, with computers or various things, or we love to both do herbs and medicine, she tends to ask me those questions all the time, like, oh no, what's the right answer? And I'm always like, well, what do you want? It doesn't really matter, you know? I mean, you could do this if you want this, or with computers, it already scares her that she feels like, I don't have a computer skill set. So that means I have to know the exact right path to get there. I have to watch Brandon click on this link, click on this link, click on this link. But what I was saying is you already do this. So if you understand, you can go anywhere. And it's okay, like with sewing, if you mess up, just go back and start over again. That's fine. Like once you understand, you're in a system, and it doesn't have to be, I have to track this same path every time. Like I have to track my path to that rabbit hole. Well, I don't. I can go around the river, I can cross the river, and I can still make it to the rabbit hole. And we all do systems thinking, but sometimes when we're put in a new system, that's scary because we don't know the parameters of that system, but it still works like a system, and you'll learn the parameters just the same way you did with anything else. but
Awesome.
that was maybe not very.
I think one of the things that I had somebody tell me one time is, if you understand the underlying principles, then you can break the rules. Because then you know what those underlying principles are, and you can still work with those underlying principles. And I think that's one of the keys. Once you understand those principles, then there are different ways. As long as I understand, I have to make the shopping cart before I, if I understand that, then there's a lot of different ways to get there. So, and I think that's part of it. So it's the principles you need to learn first, and then you feel like you can move around.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a great one. Thank you, Shannon.
Nice.
I just found my replacement teacher.
That's right.
That's perfect. Welcome to the system of Adilas. Okay, this is the interactive map. Okay, each one of these little spots is almost a door or a window to a subsection within the system. As she was speaking, if you do something here, it has a cause and effect relationship. Okay, it's fun. It's neat. We have this thing called the quick search. It allows us to walk over the river and go check out the sunset and go over here, and we can bounce in anywhere. We're in a system. It's the whole thing. This is very hard to do if you have a modular piece that does this. Say I track my customers, and then I have another POS system, then I have my accounting system, then I have my bidding one, and then I have my employee time clock, and maybe I ship my payroll out to somebody. Well, your systems are relative to those little modules, and so all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can do this and this and this. Oh, you literally break that system and you have to go to another system and work it. What we do in Adilas is we go like this. Here's your system. Where would you like to play? Like, very similar to that. And so when we go and we say, well, which way would you like to go there? Like, literally, I thought that was a wonderful analogy. It is. It's very, very wonderful. And we will try to teach you things. What we call this is called a process. That's called a process, okay? However, if you understand the concept of this, as long as I hit those key checkpoints, I can come in from all sorts of different angles. We're dealing with 3D objects. This is I'm going to dare to say this right here, but one of the places that we are headed that we haven't totally figured out yet, just because we can't get all of the data right there, 3D accounting. Virtually playing a movie of what is happening. Oh, looks like your inventory was going up. This was happening. Showing the thing growing and expanding through a virtual reality type thing. 3D accounting, because you have all of the underlying data, and it creates that cause and effect type thing. It's really cool as far as concepts and how things can go, but it's a future project for us at Adilas. And so that's kind of where we're headed with it in some ways. It's not just on the accounting side, but guess what? The accounting side is because I have to finally report it. However, this is where I'm making my money, and then the government wants to report it, or the managers want to see it, but I'm making my money here. And then all of a sudden, that's a byproduct, actually, of good operations. So, awesome. Any other comments before we switch? Yes?
The more I know this map, the better I like it, because if you use the principle, you're on the outside and have to go in, then that helps you to understand I've got to come in from something that's next to the side to get into something in the middle. And the other one, I like it as where you have things going out on this side, things coming in on this side. Again, it's the map is showing me some basic principles of how I use Adilas.
Correct. And I'm not going to make you read the help files. We've had tons of things. But if you want, just for kicks, and we're not going to read it, this particular one has a great little help file. Okay? And if you were to read through this, what it actually does is it says, start with the corners. This is what the bottom is. We then go up to an element of time. Both sides have your incoming and outgoings. The middle section is what your POS is. This other section is this. We start explaining it, okay? And there's a ton of thought that has gone into how do we lay this thing out so that we have this, so it's feeding, and so it's cause and effect relationships, okay? This is where we're headed. Currently, this is a graphic, okay? It's a graphic. We put some buttons over the top of it. Eventually, we are going to turn this into an interactive application so that you can actually learn and understand concepts through this type of a process. Okay. Any other comments about kind of system thinking versus a linear thinking. I thought it was a great lunch topic. I enjoyed it. Any other comments? Awesome. Ethan, can I pick on you for just a second? You were saying some stuff about system. Can I have you just make one comment what you thought about a system thinking pattern?
Make a comment on system thinking. I just think it's just a great way to look at it. You know, I can't explain it better than she did. It just to step back and understand that there is a system that's set up, and if I don't fight it and that system I can trust, it goes all over back and forth. Where, like she said, I come from the thing is just show me how to do it. But if I can get past that thinking, it gets rid of my fears.
Okay.
And just relax. Like those of us who aren't computer people, we immediately turn to linear. Just give me here, and that's where I've been the first 2 months I've looked at this. Just show me how to relax. Learn the system. Now there is a point you do have to learn enough of the system to be comfortable.
Sure.
Once you do.
Well, Shannon said something. She said she spent time. She's taken apart how many pieces of clothing and sewn them back together. There's some time there. There really is.
Yeah.
And you end up figuring it out. You're like, oh, cool. I know my way around my neighborhood. This is my stomping grounds. You know, like this will become your stomping grounds, especially depending on what you technically do. We have Sherry and Craig and some of these guys. If I put them in certain parts, they just shine like a light bulb. If I put them in other parts, they'll show me the way. Like, even though they can dance, I loved how you said as soon as you get into a new system, you instantly, it's just a natural, almost a reaction in a way. Show me, show me, show me. Okay.